let's get to our beloved members of the Australian Defence Force. To anyone who's part of the Defence Force or has served our country, thank you for your service, thank you for what you do. For the families who are either left behind or worry because their loved one is involved in defending our country, God love you. Well, today we learn that, again, we've got major culture problems inside, but this is all about the brass, not about the men and women who are on the front lines. A 2024 workplace experience poll has revealed that despite years of efforts to improve defence culture, 37% of personnel say they have experienced unacceptable behaviour in the past 12 months. How many times have they promised to fix this? But 37% of people say they have experienced things like sexual misconduct and bullying. The survey found just 29% of the Army, 32% of the Navy felt that their senior leaders were effective. Seriously, that's less than a third who believe that their bosses are up to it. 34%. 42% was what the number was a couple of years ago. So it is getting worse, not better. Air Force personnel, slightly more satisfied, 37% of them approve and have a positive opinion of their commanders. That, by the way, is down from 2021. Why is this particularly shocking tonight? Because remember, the Royal Commission into Veterans' Suicide that was around for years, that earlier this year had released its final reports. Big, thick documents into the problems in and around our Defence Force that in part are leading to members of the Australian Defence Force taking their own life. One of the recommendations was Recommendation 12, to consider the emotional intelligence and performance of people who move up into leadership ranks. Remember, at the time when this was released, the Prime Minister said that they respected the report and that they would get on and act on its recommendations.
Just as our veterans and defence personnel step up for our country, we have an obligation to step up for them.
So September, towards the end of October, what's the best part of 6 weeks, 7 weeks ago? Total number of recommendations that the government has said that they are going to implement from the Veterans' Suicide Royal Commission, duck egg, bugger all, none, tumbleweeds, nothing. I do not understand how a document of this seriousness does not have greater urgency. I do not understand why the opposition does not ask a question about this, about how many of the recommendations are you going to put in place. In my opinion, it should be all of them, definitely. If we've got less than a third of the men and women of our Defence Force who do not have faith in the people who lead them, and there are recommendations to change how that system works 7 weeks after they have been published, and they were as plain as the nose on your face, this government simply thinks that they could tick and flick, do the usual thing. Oh, we respect our troops. Well, what about a report into the difficulties and the failures that are leading to them taking their own lives? Nothing. No urgency whatsoever. But because they want to get a win in and around social media and trying to ban it for kids, that's a 24-hour process into a 5-day inquiry, into a law being passed, all of that within a week. If they want to do something, they can do something, but they won't do something. So can I appeal to a lady who I'm sure does not think well of me, but is in a powerful position, Jackie Lambie. Without her vote, it is harder for the government to pass a single piece of legislation. Jackie, could you pick up the phone? Could you tell the Prime Minister how many of these recommendations are you putting in place? Can you make it public, make it now, or you're not voting for anything that they want to do between now and the next election? Now, it's a threat that'll probably be empty because there won't be many days of the Senate between now and the next election. But you are in a position to do something. And I know when it comes to Veterans Affairs that she is one of the best politicians in the country who wants to do something. Now, I have a crack at her uphill, down dale, all day, every day. But a broken clock can be right twice a day. It is right on this. Senator, please use your power to get this public. Use your power to tell us how many of these recommendations are they going to put in place. Can you put the pressure on the government and the Prime Minister the next time you see him? What the hell is going on? Why have they not done anything with this report? They are just, yet again, letting the men and women of our Defence Force swing in the breeze, metaphorically, I say. Now, in the US, as you know, Trump on his way back to power, but there is a ridiculous suggestion from lefties who cannot get past their hate of all things to do with Orange Man bad. And they have got a new plan, which is to dangle a potential jail sentence over Donald Trump all the way through the next 4 years of his presidency. This all comes back to the bloke who ran on the Get Trump bandwagon, who helped fiddle the dials and push things. So he was found guilty on 34 counts of bookkeeping charges in a trial that didn't even ask as a witness the bookkeeper to give evidence, because the assumption was that the bookkeeper would end up speaking on Trump's behalf. But surprise, surprise, a place that votes very dramatically, New York City, Democrat, that all of the jury came back with those 34 guilty verdicts. Now, the president was supposed to be sentenced before the Republican convention. It was delayed until after the election, and now Alvin Bragg is trying to put in place a delay on sentencing for another 4 years. I'll let our dear friend Annalise explain this nonsense.
In a previous filing, the district attorney argued against dismissing the conviction, saying no current law establishes that a president's temporary immunity from prosecution requires dismissal of a post-trial criminal proceeding that was initiated at a time when the defendant was not immune from criminal prosecution, and that is based on official conduct for which the defendant is also not immune. In response to the delay, Donald Trump's communication director, Stephen Chung, said in a statement, "This is a total and definitive victory for President Trump and the American people, who elected him in a landslide." The Manhattan DA has conceded that this witch hunt cannot continue.